Hello and a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Today it's the real world range test of the FireFly system. Before we get to the results, let's once again watch my short but upbeat intro. A bit of background first of all. Theoretical ranges are fine, but it's nice to get these systems in a real garden to see how they cope with greenhouses, sheds, piles of wood, trees, hedges, anything that could come between you and line of sight of your system. So thank you to Amanda for letting me borrow her typically British garden again. If you have a look here, you'll see that this garden is to firing systems what the Royal Marines Assault Course is to new recruits. That is harsh and pretty brutal. It is designed really to make the firing systems fail. We start off at the end of the garden. There is a growing pile of stuff which the signal has to navigate through. Then we come to a greenhouse which is now full of autumnal fruits and vegetables. Then we skip over another bit of garden, some pretty laden trees, lots of fruit on those. Another greenhouse just for good measure. Why have one when you can have two? And you'll see from the higher up shots that I've done here that it's quite a garden to navigate for a signal. So I've popped the system down on the ground. Usual advice is to raise it. Yes, I know this, but this is designed to start at the deep end. You'll also notice that FireFly on this occasion is not in a box. Some other systems I've tested have been in a case, fully enclosed. It's purely because I haven't found a box suitable for this yet, so that might give it a bit of an advantage when it comes to signal strength. So let's go over to the garden now for test number one. Okay, so I'm in the spectator area. The first thing I'm going to do is go into my phone settings and use that as a guide to whether we've got Wi-Fi or not. I'm going to refresh my Wi-Fi list because if it's had connection and then just lost it, it won't show for a little bit. Okay, so no signal here. I'm going to try moving to a few different points. It has now appeared, hope you can see me all right, I'm looking a bit dark on the screen. It has just appeared now on the minimum strength. So I've clicked on it and it's saying that I have actually connected. And I go into the app. It's very hard doing this with one hand. Okay, the app has let me connect. It's showing 2 cues, which is correct. Firing 1. There's no point in firing an LED. I won't know if that's gone off when I get back, will I? So let's go and have a look. Okay, so the fuse hasn't gone off, so I did lose connection at some point, and although it said on my phone I was connected, presumably fumbling about trying to get it to go off, the connection was just so weak at that point it was dropping out. That was agonisingly close, wasn't it? The signal came in and out, never quite long enough to establish a reliable connection, so it doesn't pass at this particular point. This brings me on to an interesting quirk of this system you need to be aware of, which I didn't realise at the start, and I spent many hours walking up and down this garden to find that the unit was unresponsive even when I was right next to it, and it's this. If you have a connection to this unit and then you walk to a point where you lose the connection and then move back to a point where you are in range and try and fire, the system will not respond. I've spoken to FireFly about this just to rule out a problem with my phone or a user error, and they've confirmed that it's a security feature, so if the connection drops you can't just re-establish it by moving into range and firing. You have to actually start a new session with the system, so that would mean going into the app again, clicking connect and then starting again from there. Now, one thing I noticed in this first test after I'd done it was the aerial was bent at right angles, which generally speaking is not a good idea for strong signal strength. So I'm going to repeat this test again, but with the aerial fully straightened. Okay, take 2 or 3. Actually, it's about take 25. I've been here for 3 days now. I'm not joking, I'll tell you about this when I edit the video. So, refreshing my Wi-Fi list, I've learnt that lesson. Nope, it's not there. Okay, we're still not there. It appeared briefly and then went. There is a very small spot along this bit of garden where I can see Titan FireFly, which is how it comes up in the Wi-Fi list. But when you click on it, it says unable to join, so it's just too weak a signal. Okay, let's try something different. I'm going to try my iPad now, see if that makes a difference. This will be even harder to do with one hand. So no connection on my iPad either at this distance. We try moving to the spot before where it did come up on the phone. It's just come up on the very, very weakest of signal strengths. I'm going to try connecting to it. Unable to join the network. What I'm going to do now is to put the FireFly unit quite high up on a pile of bricks and so forth, and just run a line of sight test first of all to make sure we are getting some connection to the unit from a distance. I have a confession to make. I accidentally pressed the mode button on the front of the unit when I was moving it, which put it into a different mode, and it wasn't giving out a Wi-Fi signal at all. Just to cut in here and explain that in a little more detail, on the front of the FireFly unit is a mode button. You press this to change it from being a standalone system to part of a group, or to put it into a firmware upgrade mode. From memory, from what I've read on their website, don't quote me on that. So what happened was, as I picked it up, I pressed that button and suddenly it wasn't transmitting a Wi-Fi signal. Hence I was going up and down the garden wondering why it wasn't working at all. So top tip, if you're standing next to the unit and have no signal at all, nearly always that is going to be the reason why. Right, line of sight, 30 meters or so, full strength signal. So it's not a distance thing, it is an obstruction thing. So I'm going to start moving around a bit, putting a bit of junk. So with the tree trunk in the way, we have dropped 1 bar of signal strength. With a load of plant pots and stuff in the way, we are very low strength. I am going to try and turn the camera around to show you that between me and the system now in direct line of sight is actually a big metal container with loads of stuff on top and a very thickly laden fruit tree. So it's looking like this is a line of sight system ideally, possibly with a bit of leeway if you've got a bit of vegetation in the way, but metal seems to cause a problem. And I am now in a place where there's 2 greenhouses between me and the unit, and there's no signal strength at all. So this has been a really useful test. Line of sight, absolutely no problem. Bit of vegetation that you might find in your garden, also fine. But if you are intending on using this unit and you've got things like greenhouses or anything metal, that seems as if it could cause a problem. The signal strength now is maximum while I can see the unit and it's raised off of the ground. Just as a point of interest, I'm going to go closer, but put 1 greenhouse in the way with a tree and various bits of vegetation and a greenhouse. So let's say you had a garden like this and you were halfway up it, so you weren't with the spectators but you weren't with the fireworks. I'm getting a signal strength here, 2 out of 3, so that's fine. Wrapping things up then, agonisingly close with the first test, weren't we? When I saw it appear in the Wi-Fi list, I thought we're onto a winner here, but it couldn't establish a connection that was strong enough for long enough. Trying to get the unit to fire from that distance with a patchy signal was also complicated by the fact that if you do lose a signal with this system, you have to restart the app and start a new session for security reasons. So that means that if you are getting this system, I wouldn't recommend using it where the signal strength is quite low. You do need quite a high signal strength to make sure you're going to reliably keep in contact with the unit. Speaking of distances, the manufacturer says this has a line of sight range of 100 meters. That should be more than enough for most back gardens and certainly for displays out in open fields. As you saw there in this video, I tested it out to 30 meters with it raised off the ground and it worked absolutely fine. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I will see you in the next one. As far as range tests go, I have a couple more systems to throw off a cliff, so to speak, in the same garden, so stay tuned for that. But on that note, I will say goodbye and I will see you in the next video.